Hello and welcome to this week's Different League show sponsored by Betfred. So great news that Boris has taken the nation into the next stage of the easing of lockdown, which means that fans will be allowed back in the stadiums from next week. Just as Manchester City are crowned Premier League champions and all 3 relegation places are sorted. One thing that's not sorted is the top 4. I know Tony Cottee would be desperate for West Ham to get into that top 4. He's alongside Mark and myself. How are you, mate? You okay?
I'm really good, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think the top 4 might have just gone for West Ham, but I still want them to get into Europe, and particularly the Europa League. I think that would be a great achievement for the club.
You're like a London bus, you are, actually. I don't see you for years, and I see you twice in a short space of time.
I know, we bumped into each other, didn't we, at Charlton? So, it's great to see you, mate.
Let's not talk about what happened at Charlton at the Valley. Shame about that. But there's still the future's looking very good at the Valley. Look, this week's big talking points. The big news for me isn't about City winning the title. It is the next stage of the easing of lockdown from May 17. So my obvious and big question to you is, who are you going to hug on Monday?
Yeah, exactly. I'll have to think about that one, Scott. You put me on the spot there, didn't you?
Seriously, though, look, up to 10,000 fans are allowed to go into the stadiums from May 17. Yeah. And after 14 or so months away, this is monumental, isn't it?
Yeah, and the Premier League deserve great credit as well because they've adjusted the fixtures, because it would have been totally unfair just to have the last game and that would have meant, 10 of the teams wouldn't have had home fans. So I think they deserve credit for that. But it's the right thing to do. We need the fans back. We've all been going to games, haven't we, where you go into the ground and, yes, it's football, but it's not football as we know it, and you can hear everything. It's a bit like you relate to this, Scott. The old days when you played a reserve game and you're playing at the big stadium, but there's no fans there, and you can hear your dad in the crowd. Hurry up, speed it up a bit. You're not playing very well, and you can hear everything, can't you? And so it's long overdue. I'm really pleased. Let's get the fans back. Obviously, everyone's got to be. It's got to be in a safe environment. We understand that, but we're talking thousands. We're not talking hundreds. We're talking thousands back into the stadium. We've had all the test events, and it's going to be great. And hopefully with the Euros as well. And then I'm really, really hopeful August back to full capacity.
Yeah, I did a thing with Rick Parry a week or so ago, obviously head of the EFL, and he was saying the plan is for next season full capacity. We'll see whether that happens. But it feels a big moment in society as well as football, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. The being able to eat inside in a restaurant and maybe have a pint.
Not 5 layers of clothing on.
Outside in the garden, yeah.
Exactly. You're not having to sort of have all the layers on at sort of 9 o'clock at night in a beer garden when it's about 3 degrees out. Yeah, it is a big moment. I was really afraid that a lot of EFL clubs would go under, and I mean, there's probably still be paying for this for a while to come, but I think it's a tremendous achievement that they've managed to finish one season, that those that did, then play a whole season, with most of the clubs being able to pay the wages. The fans, the iFollow's not amazing, but it's still something, and with Charlton TV and stuff like that, really sort of bringing it to the fans, but it's not the same, and so to be able to go to a game again is going to be a real special.
It's important to remember as well, Mark, the impact football's had as well throughout this pandemic, and the role it's played in people's lives, because it's been such doom and gloom for everyone around the world, and we've managed to keep football afloat, and football brings such joy to everyone. As I say, it's not been the normal game, but we've been able to watch football, and that's made a real difference to a lot of my friends who have said, without football, I'd have been in big problems mentally, etc. So it's played a huge part in that. We should remember that.
Definitely. It's one of the most important, unimportant things in life, isn't it? Definitely. Yeah. How strange do you think it would be for the players? I mean, some of them have got so used to it, and they're actually playing well without the fans now, aren't they?
Well, it's weird, isn't it? Because there's probably players that have performed better because there's been no crowds, and there's probably other players that have performed worse because they've not got the adrenaline rush and they're not rising to the occasion. So, there will be a correction without a doubt. And we've seen some absolutely bizarre results, haven't we? Like I'm thinking straight away, like Villa beating Liverpool, and then Spurs winning at Manchester United 6-1, and lots of incredible
Spurs
results.
winning generally.
Well,
no, I'm joking.
We're not going to go there. We're not going to go there, are we?
I mean, a West Ham sandwich today.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, if you look at West Ham, I mean, would they have had the same performances this year with the crowd had been there? There's a lot of talking points, isn't there?
Just on that one.
I think at the start it would have been a lot more difficult. You lose the first 2 games of the season, and then the fans would have turned up for that home game against Wolves moaning, and of course they beat Wolves 4-0, and then they've kicked on. But I think it also works the other way as well, because when they was losing against Chelsea and when they was losing at home the other day against Everton, the fans would have got behind them and it would have been pushed. It would have pushed them more to get a goal behind. So I think it balances itself out.
Yeah, that Southampton game for West Ham would be fantastic to see the Hammers fans back. OK, let's talk about Manchester City being champions now then, shall we? And look, it won't make any difference to the destiny of the Premier League title in terms of fans. That's already sorted. Pep's shown he's such a genius as well. For you, what's made City the best team by far this season?
I think it's been the control that they've managed to have. I think having a squad that they've got has played a big part in it, because the Saturday, Tuesday has been absolutely relentless. And when you can sort of rotate Fernandinho and Rodri and, not even have to play Aguero and Jesus, and then in midfield, did you play Foden or Sterling? I mean, that is, that's a dream, but I think he's adapted to the season, and that they've not been as gung-ho with their press, and I think that maybe some of the teams, even like a Southampton, have found that they can't do that all season. So he's gone for a more controlled campaign, and I think the way that he's always sort of dreamt really of having a team of midfielders, and he's kind of done that with this Man City team.
11 midfielders.
No centre forward, is it?
No centre forward.
And it's almost 11 midfielders, not just 10, but 11.
And obviously, I mean, you mentioned him last week when we spoke about Diaz being player of the season for you. The improvement he has made in that defence, and John Stones has got better, I think, alongside him. All played its part, but very obviously deserving champions.
Yeah, amazing to think that they lost to Leicester 5-2 at home.
Another bizarre result,
Yeah, and when they lost to Spurs in November, they finished that weekend in 13th.
Yeah.
But then the run they went on, what was it, 21 consecutive wins in all competitions, 16 in the league.
Still
as
8th on Christmas Day, I was reading, so they were still had, so much to make up.
What changed for you?
I don't know, Scotty. I mean, I think they didn't panic. You listen to Pep, and he just they almost went under the radar. And you had all these teams, everyone saying this is going to be the most exciting title race for years and everything, which it was up to a point. And they just sort of started to win and win and win and win and win. And listen, it helps. You're quite right, mate. If you've got the best players, it helps, because you've got the best squad. Football's all about players, and if you can rotate those players, you've still got to be a great manager, and you've got to put Pep into that category. He is a great manager. It's not so much about the talent that players have got now. You've got to manage their egos, you've got to manage all their off-field problems, their on-field problems. You've got to babysit them now, a lot more than in our day when we used to play. I think players used to get on with it a little bit more. It wasn't so much about the manager. I think now you've got to babysit them, and he does a fantastic job. He always seems to know when to take a player out, when to put a player in. The two boys you mentioned, Diaz and John Stones. I feel a bit sorry for John Stones, because everyone's going on about Diaz. And John Stones has been absolutely incredible after all these personal problems and issues, and he's been fantastic this year. But if you get two solid centre-halves, you've already got a great goalkeeper. You've got the basis to build on, and I know you joked about 11 midfielders, but they can all play, can't they? And they're a joy to watch, and it's been different. If you try and compare them to the great Man United teams or the Liverpool teams of the past, it's very difficult to do that. But this City team, they can all play, and perhaps that's a little bit different to the other great teams.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Pep. He's practically reinvented a team again, and Fergie had to, and several occasions. Arsene Wenger did as well. As it stands, where do you put Pep? And he might be higher, in years to come, but where do you put Pep in terms of best ever managers in English football?
I'd say in the top 5. He's gone into that top 5 now. I think it's hard, isn't it? I mean, how do you compare Pep with Brian Clough, for example, who was unbelievable? And then you go back to Matt Busby's and all these great, in their time, they was all fantastic. Bill Nicholson, John Lyle, Ron Greenwood, all these great managers. I haven't even mentioned Sir Alex and Arsene Wenger, and how do you compare everyone? But I think with what he's doing with his City team, managing the multi-millionaire footballers and the egos and everything, I think that is an achievement in itself. Was it 3 out of 4 years they've won the league, City, haven't they? So I think he's up there in that top 5. But listen, when you've won 13 Premier Leagues or something, then we'll then look to put him up with Sir Alex. I think that's probably fair to say.
It is funny though. I mean, I sort of look at English football now, and even before he came into it as well. For me, and I think he looked at it, it's not just about winning trophies. That should be the number one thing. It's almost about leaving a legacy. And when you get other Premier League teams Championship teams, League One teams, even League Two teams, trying to play out from the back because Pep's teams
With
do
hilarious
it as well.
consequences,
Yes,
I would say. As
not
well at
quite the
times.
same. But it's about the influence he has over English football as well. I don't know where you stand on that.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I think people get his Bayern Munich stint a little bit wrong, because he didn't win the Champions League with Bayern Munich. There are some said, well, you know, if you don't win you can't be a success if you haven't won the Champions League with Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich were absolutely delighted with what Pep Guardiola did, because he gave them an identity that they didn't really have. It was like they're a German winning machine and kind of cliches. And he changed their footballing philosophy, not just at the top, sort of right down as well. And I think it's the same when people sort of say about Manchester City. I don't watch a lot of the youth football, but it's said to be now that he has got them an identity and they play that way, sort of right down from sort of the younger groups up. And what he's doing now, you might see the benefits still in 10, 15 years' time. And I think that's what makes him, say, a difference to somebody like a Mourinho or Antonio Conte, who win now. Let's just win now. I think he is about like the bigger picture, I think.
It's that Barcelona philosophy all the way through, isn't it? And when Philip Lahm said, I'm not going to become a manager because I've seen what Pep's done, and that's Philip Lahm we're talking about, you know, you can see the type of manager he was. Listen, congratulations to Pep and Manchester City, well worthy winners. One thing he doesn't have to worry about, probably, Efo, is relegation, or getting promoted through the playoffs as well. Firstly, let's talk about relegation. All three teams sorted now. We haven't got time for in-depth analysis, but where did it go wrong for you with the three?
Fulham had a lot of loan players, didn't sort of get their team sorted out. I think they come up through the playoffs as well, which meant they was always playing catch-up. I feel for Scotty Parker a little bit, you know. I think he's a good young manager, and you want to see him. Me personally, I particularly like to see the English managers doing well. So, you know, I feel for him a little bit, but it was a bit of a limp effort. Was it against Burnley, wasn't it? You know, they didn't really, for a game they had to win that could have really closed the gap. It was a bit of a limp effort, I felt. And
just a few weeks ago, we all thought Fulham were going to do it. Who do you feel would be the managers of these teams?
I think Scott Parker can stay at Fulham.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Allardyce at West Brom, I feel like it'd be the safest option to keep him. If they do, I'm assuming that means he's given a budget that he thinks will get them back up. I don't see him hanging around if he thinks they're not going to.
No, and I think Scott's the same actually at Fulham.
Okay, I sort of had Scott Parker down as somebody that maybe would not be grateful to have a job, but just sort of maybe toe the party line a bit more, but maybe he's not. For Sheffield United, I've absolutely no idea what could happen.
They need a Chris Wilder, don't they? He's gone. I forgot. He's gone. No, but it's bizarre, isn't it? And the same with West Brom. You get relegated and you think, oh, well, they need a Big Sam. Oh, no, they've got Big Sam already. So
I think they want a Big Sam. Big Sam will decide whether he wants to do it.
I would have thought Sam is hurting now. You know, as we know, I think there was a really early relegation in his career, but I think over the last 20, 25 years, he's been known, hasn't he? You get Big Sam, you don't get relegated. Yeah. They've gone down. I think he'll be really, really analysing things. Do I need this? What is he's in his 60s now? Do I need to continue the day-to-day grind? I wouldn't be surprised if Sam moves on and they get a younger coach in. Sheffield United, I've got no idea, but I hope Scott stays at Fulham.
Yeah, no, I think he will. I agree with you about Scott, but I think he will be saying, I want this, this and this if we are to become a Premier League club and stay there. The playoffs. The excitement of that coming up as well now as well. League Two, Newport, Forest Green, Morecambe and Tranmere. Not quite sure what happened with Keith Hill at Tranmere. League One, Blackpool, Oxford, Sunderland and Lincoln. While in the Championship, Bournemouth, Brentford, Barnsley and Swansea have the chance of the Premier League riches. How do you see it all going?
I love the playoffs. It is my favourite football. I'm glad that fans will be back for that. I think in the Championship, Brentford, I think are the best team by a fair enough margin to be confident they can finish what they sort of have threatened, to finish a couple of times and not go over the line. I think Barnsley are probably the biggest danger to them, but I'd go for Brentford just because in Tony they've got something.
He's done fantastic. He's been brilliant.
Was it 30 odd goals?
Yeah.
So I will go for Brentford. I think it'll be a Brentford-Barnsley final. Brentford to win.
Okay.
Oh, big shout. Yeah, I think the winners in the Brentford-Bournemouth semi-final. I think Bournemouth have actually picked up. They've had a good run recently and they seem to have hit a bit of form. Wouldn't surprise me if they beat Brentford. But personally, I'd actually quite like to see Brentford come up for something different. They're a great club. They've got their new stadium. And, you lose someone like Ollie Watkins and Ben Rama, and then you sign Ivan Toney, and because like teams often sell their best players and then they go mid-table or get relegated or something. Brentford have stayed up. I'd like to see them come up, but I think it'd be tough. I think the winner's in that semi-final without a doubt.
Just fell short last year as well, didn't they? I mean, you and I watch a lot of League One as well. How do you see that going? Yeah,
League One. I think Sunderland, perhaps for me, although Lincoln are a decent team, it'll be interesting. I was really surprised Portsmouth never made it. They were sort of. I've covered a lot of League One this year. They was one of the best teams I've seen. John Marquis, of course, great goal scorer, and had everything in place. The Cowley brothers were there, and they've just fell short. Particularly, obviously, had that game at home to Accrington, and they didn't win the game. So they'll be really disappointed. But anyway, moving forward, I think Sunderland, for me, will be the team that comes up. They need to. They're a massive club, don't they? They need to come up. And just briefly, Forest Green are the best team I saw in League Two this year.
Okay.
So I'm going Forest Green, Sunderland, Bournemouth.
Okay.
You heard it first, but my track record with betting, Scott, is not good. So just look at all the other three.
Do you know what? I spoke to Lenny Lawrence a couple of weeks ago, who gave me my professional debut at Charlton, and I said to him, momentum, and he said, doesn't matter.
No.
He said, I've gone into playoffs with momentum and lost.
Yeah.
I've got it just sneaked in and been poor going into the playoffs, and we actually got promoted.
Yeah.
I'd still rather have it than not, but how do you see it?
In League One, you've been mentioning Blackpool.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been more off there, but you seem to really like Blackpool. So I don't know if I'm going to sort of swayed by you. My sort of instinct was Oxford, because started the season really slow. I think the playoff hangover of not beating Wycombe when they really fancied their chances of winning that sort of stopped them early on. The way they've finished the season, and I know what Lenny Lawrence was just saying, it doesn't matter too much, but I think I'd rather.
Of course you would.
I think I'd rather have it than not. So I'm going to go for Oxford, but I'm nervous about Blackpool.
Well, I saw Blackpool at the Valley, it was a couple of months ago now. They absolutely destroyed Charlton, to be honest with you, and they went on a fantastic run. They finished third, though. That's not always good.
No, it's not, is it?
We'll see. But I'm going for Blackpool. I'm going for Forest Green as well. And I'm also going to go for Brentford. I think they will learn from what happened last season. And they are in good form coming into it as well. So
all the ones we've not mentioned, they're the ones to look at.
We'll see. OK, well, look, let's get to our game previews in the Premier League, shall we? And good game on Thursday. Rearranged game, of course, TC. Manchester United against Liverpool. What did you make of Ollie making 10 changes against Leicester? And it'll be a full-strength side here, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was weird in a way, because you're thinking if they could have beat Leicester and if they'd have beaten Liverpool, they would have been 4 points behind City, and City have got to go and play at Newcastle, which can be a tough game. So, but he's obviously made a decision. You sort of understand it, but I've got to be honest, as soon as the team come out, there was only one team going to win that game last night, and that was Leicester, without a doubt. Listen, there's some decent players on the field for Manchester United, but when you rest your top players, and you understand that, and from the fans' point of view, would they rather beat Leicester or would they rather beat Liverpool? Of course, they'd rather beat Liverpool. We understand that. So, I mean, there's obviously reasons behind it, but it was maybe a little bit of a strange decision for me.
I wonder whether United fans wouldn't have been unhappy with losing to Leicester if they beat Liverpool, because it makes sure even more so that Liverpool struggle to get Champions League qualification.
And it could set Liverpool back next year, couldn't it? If Liverpool haven't got Champions League, if they're in the Europa League, the funds, that sort of, for whatever reason, the Thursday, Sunday seems to mess with people's schedules. So, I'm not. You never want to lose as a fan, but I think if there's one game they would have wanted to have lost in the midweek, it's Leicester rather than Liverpool.
Definitely. I mean, what about Liverpool? How big a game is this for them? How do you see them right now in terms of how they're playing?
I don't think they're. I don't think they're at their best. I don't think they're anywhere near their best really. But they know what they've got. Klopp said, if we win all of our games, we'll be in. Obviously,
in the Champions League.
That's what he said. He was sort of putting the pressure on Leicester, I suppose, and sort of, hoping that Leicester lose both of their remaining matches. They've got to play on the front foot. I think that means it'll be a great game. They're not the team that they were last year. I think many reasons for it. Henderson and Van Dijk's injuries, obviously massive. I also think that the fullbacks are much more nervous about going forward because
Gomez as well.
Because Gomez is not there. Gomez and Henderson would cover a lot of when Alexander-Arnold would sort of go wandering down that right flank. They haven't got that anymore, and teams are just sensing blood. And even when even when you expect them to win these easy games, they're making them more difficult than they need to be, and then they're not putting teams away, and it's costing them.
How do you see this game developing?
I've gone. Do you want my predictions now, Scotty?
Well, tell us how you see the game going,
Right.
and then your Betfred selection.
Okay. I don't see a lot in it between these two. I mean, I know what you're saying about Liverpool. Still think they've got a chance of the Champions League, but if they've got any serious chance, they've got to win the game. But I don't think they will. I think Ollie's held the players back. They're going to give it a charge. But you've got to say maybe slightly Man United, but I can't split them. I really can't split them. My Betfred prediction is a draw and both teams to score. So it might be a 1-1 or a 2-2, but that's my prediction I've gone for. It's always a tight game. I just hope it's not a boring 0-0, but it's a draw for me and both teams to score.
Liverpool should be fresher, but United will definitely be up for this one. I've gone similar, a low score draw, maybe 1-1 or even 0-0, but hopefully I'm wrong there.
I'm gone for over 2.5 goals. I think it'll be pretty exciting. 5 of United's last 6 in the Premier League have had at least 3 goals, and Liverpool, because they've got to go on the front foot, I think that plays to United's strength. So I think it could be a better game than maybe usual between these two teams.
I hope so, because they're not always great, despite it being
big build-up.
Yeah. Okay. Game preview 2, it's the Friday night game, Newcastle against Man City. Now, City won the title, Newcastle has stayed up. Not much sort of riding on this in terms of that, but City won't want to take the foot off the gas, will they? I mean, it's the first home game since being crowned champions.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's away game.
Away game, yeah. Again, with Pep, I mean, I think he'll put out a relatively strong team, but obviously we've got the Champions League final coming up, so now it's all about, now they've sealed the title, it's about managing the players and getting maybe people like Aguero, trying to get them a little bit more fitter. That's certainly going to come into his thinking. Newcastle are a decent team. They're on a good run, aren't they? So he's got to be careful, Pep. He can't just put out his reserves, albeit a really good reserve team, because you still want to get points. You still want to get as many points as possible. I don't see him putting out too many reserves and then not worrying about the game. I don't think he's that type of manager, but he's got to manage them properly to try and get the result. He'll
be at it 100%, I'm sure. Just in terms of false 9, then he goes to 2 strikers. I take it you don't like the false 9.
I don't get any team without centre forward. But what do you expect me to say? Like centre forwards union
exactly.
and that.
Turkey's voting for Christmas, isn't it?
Someone like Aguero and Jesus, you've got to play, if they're fit, obviously, you've got to play them in that team. But if you've got the sensational midfielders they've got, and it's the City team's all about movement. It's movement. It's never been any different. You can go back 50, 60 years. The best teams were the teams with the best movement, and City's team is about movement. And if you don't play the centre forward, as long as you've got players moving around, you can compensate. But I love Aguero, and I want to see him play as many games as possible.
Yeah, especially he hasn't got many games left in a City shirt. They'll also want to bounce back after defeat to Chelsea. I mean, talking about Sergio Aguero, that penalty.
Not his best effort in his years at Manchester City. I mean, look, when the Panenka goes in, people go, "Oh wow." He hasn't got a very good penalty record though, so I'm not even sure he should be on them. And if he is, maybe he should be looking to keep it a sort of more simple.
I wonder if he enjoys taking them, Mark, because I'm not comparing myself with Aguero, but I didn't enjoy taking penalties. The thrill of scoring a goal in open play was so much more exciting than everything stopping and then taking a penalty. So I don't know whether I'd be interested to know whether he enjoys taking them.
I always say. Never criticise someone who takes a penalty, because there's probably 2, maximum 3 of the 11 that would step up and take it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But to hear a striker say that, where it's certainly not a free effort of goal, there's pressure on you, but it's a great opportunity to score another goal.
It didn't help I had Ray Stewart and Julian Dixon. when you've got people like that, you don't get a shout of getting the ball. 2 of the best penalty takers that there's been over the last sort of 25, 30 years. But, it is a different scenario. When it's a dead ball, everything stops and you then got time to think about it. And I think Aguero's an instinctive striker. That was the point I was trying to make.
I think he's very much someone that just comes alive, isn't he, on instinct, I think. So it's interesting that he's not as good as you would associate. And also Lionel Messi is another one.
His record's poor, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, relatively speaking, he hasn't got a great penalty record, and you would assume that he, like the way he takes his free kicks, you would assume he'd score a lot of penalties. But maybe it's that thrill of, almost feels a little bit too easy for him, that he's trying to make it a little bit more difficult.
Who knows why it is? And yet they keep on stepping up, him and Ronaldo especially, but Ronaldo fantastic at pens. Newcastle will have the shackles taken off, and they were, I have to say, superb against Leicester, weren't they?
Yeah.
Oh, they were, weren't they? I mean, I suppose that's what the fans have been hoping for more of this season. I think that Steve Bruce, since Graham Jones has gone in there, they have definitely tried to play more attractive football, but I do think it's unfair that Steve Bruce still gets the criticism when things go wrong, and then when they win and go, oh, Graham Jones is doing a good job. I think that is really harsh between them, and it must be a team effort that they've improved over the last couple of months, and it helps when you've got, I know Wilson's out now, but it helps when you've got your 3 best players available in the attacking third, and it was a really good performance from them. I thought Leicester were poor though.
So we talked about a possible open game with Manchester United and Liverpool. Could this be open in terms of Steve Bruce? He won't want it to be open, but might he think it's pressure from the fans? We've definitely stayed up, so let's play the Newcastle way now.
Yeah, maybe, but sometimes when you've got the pressure of like, oh, we could get relegated, we could still get relegated, and now they can't get relegated. At which point, sometimes players relax, and it's only human nature that you switch off a little bit. And it's the game against Man City now is not as important as it would have been if, say, Fulham had beaten Burnley and you're still involved in a scrap and that. So I think Newcastle have done a lot of good work over the last month. I'm pleased for Brucey. He's a friend of mine. I'm really pleased that he's kept them up. He just seems to get unfair stick, I think, but it's a bit of a poison chalice up there, and until the takeover goes through and everything settles down, then I think it will always be like that, particularly with Mike Ashley in control there still at the moment. The fans aren't happy, and that makes it difficult for whoever is the manager. But I think the players might be a little bit more relaxed than what they would be going into this Man City game, and whatever team City play, it's going to be a good team. Yeah,
I'm not sure if that's a good thing you're relaxed against City or not.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm not sure how the fans will be after this game. So what is your Betfred selection?
My Betfred selection, I've gone for an away win and Sergio Aguero to make up for his penalty last week and to score a goal.
I think City will win easily. City to win to 0 happened in each of the last 3 times they've played against Newcastle.
I think City will score a lot of goals, but I actually think Newcastle will nick one here. So I've gone City to win big, but both teams to score. We'll see. OK, one that you and I will be looking forward to this one now. It is the FA Cup final. Chelsea against Leicester, Saturday evening. A chance for a first piece of silverware for Thomas Tuchel, the first German to lead out a side in an FA Cup final. Just how good has he been since he's come to the Chelsea?
He's been fantastic. I must admit, I was really disappointed for Frank Lampard, as I said, supporting the English managers. Sorry, I'm biased that way. It's just how I feel. I want to see.
Don't worry, it took me about a month to stop talking about Frank.
Yeah, I wanted to see Frank do well, but I think he put some foundations in place, particularly with the younger players, obviously. But Tuchel's come in, and he's sort of almost. It appears, and I'm only looking in. It appears that he's got the experienced players back on board. Whether their nose was put out of joint a little bit by Frank going with the youth players, but the experienced players, the likes of like Alonso and Azpilicueta, I can never say his name. I got it right there, didn't I? And he's got them guys back on board, which is great. Organised them defensively, like as good as it was to watch Frank's team, they kept conceding goals, and if you're conceding goals, you're not going to get in the Champions League, you're not going to get the cup finals. So he's got them well organised, and you've got all the attacking. We talk about the attacking talents of Man City. Chelsea have got some sensational players going forward. So I think the key for him, and he's done it very well, get your back four sorted out, get your goalkeeper settled, and then you can then build from there. And whatever players he plays, the 6 he plays in front of the back four, they're good players. You haven't got to worry about them. That was never the problem. It was just conceding goals. And I think that's what he's done. He deserves great credit. He'd come in and he would have been under massive pressure as well, because we know what it's like at Chelsea. If you go in there, if he'd have gone in there and lost his first 6 games, he'd have been out. No two ways about it. Abramovich doesn't care. It's not about reputations. You've got to deliver. And he's delivered. He
doesn't do long term. And I've said on more than one occasion, I do think Frank and Jody could have taken Chelsea to these kind of stages, but not this season.
But you don't get the time, Scott.
No, and it's about the here and now for Roman Abramovich. And we can't criticise him for that, what he's done for the club. But if Tuchel was looking at hero status possibly at Chelsea, what would it be for Brendan Rodgers? I mean, Leicester have never won this competition.
No, obviously winning the Premier League sort of was the miracle moment for them. But the fans, I know a couple that really, like the FA Cup has meant a lot for them. I suppose because they've won the league now, what else can we do? And so winning the FA Cup has taken on, I think, it's become a priority for them in recent years, even though they've been sort of knocking on the door of the top four and sort of top six since they've become established. So it'll mean a lot for them. I think it would mean a lot for Brendan Rodgers because, you go, oh, well, he's won stuff at Celtic, but, anyone could do that. I don't think that's true because we've seen other managers fail at Celtic like you have at Rangers, but
accusations are thrown at.
And, what happened with Liverpool where they got so close, couldn't get over the line. Last season, so close to top four, couldn't get over the line. I think this would sort of be a really sort of big moment against a club that he knows so well and sort of, started out at as well. It would mean a lot, I think, for both teams. It's an FA Cup final, maybe not like the absolute old days, but I think that it really will feel like a big occasion.
Yeah, it's for me, it's still absolutely massive. I'm sure it is for you as well. I don't know if Brendan's given Big Sam a call, but how do you beat Chelsea?
I think you've got to get it right tactically, Scott. That's the main thing. The big thing for me, and it made a massive difference on Friday, Johnny Evans. They need him fit. I think they're managing his injury, and I'm hoping it was a case of it was a little twinge, or if I don't play, and just get him ready, because if you get Johnny Evans on the field with Soyuncu and Fofana, they're a very, very strong back three.
Because they're good going forward, obviously. Ian Atcher's in great form, Jamie Vardy.
Yeah, Tielemans has been excellent, and Didi sits in front of the back four or the back five. They've got some really good players, Leicester. Listen, they're in the top four. They're going to qualify for the Champions League, hopefully. So I'm expecting them to give Chelsea a really, really good game. And Brendan will be thinking long and hard about, how do you stack up against Chelsea? What formation do you play? How do you take advantage of that? He's been playing Vardy and Iheanacho. He's been playing the two up front for about the last 2 months now. So he will let them two occupy the back three, back four, whoever plays for Chelsea. I think they played back three, didn't they, last game? So, that will be an interesting matchup. I think Leicester will probably play a back three as well. So, listen, I can't see it being a game full of lots and lots of goals. I'd love to think otherwise, but I think finals are notoriously tight. And I don't think there'll be too many goals in this one.
I agree with you. So what's your Betfred selection here?
Don't get the ump with me, Scott. Right? But, listen,
I know what way you're going to go.
Of course, yeah, ex-Leicester player. But 4 cup finals, this means a lot to the players and a lot to the fans. I think Leicester will possibly win it. 1-0. I don't think there'll be a lot of goals in it. And I think the main man, he's actually been playing quite well, but the goals ain't been gaining. I think Jamie Vardy could crown his career. He's already a legend at Leicester. If he scores a winner in the cup final, I'm going for Leicester win and Vardy to score.
There'll be statue outside the stadium, won't it, if that's the case? What are you going for, Mark?
I'm going for...
You're the one in between here, so
I'm going,
the
neutral view. I'm going for Chelsea to win. I think Johnny Evans, as Tony has said, that's a big one to see whether he's fit, and B, if he plays, whether he's really fit, and sort of, sometimes you do get people playing the cup final and they're not quite they wouldn't play if it was a league game necessarily, and their standard slipped. So I've just been watching Leicester. That game against Manchester United, United reserves, thumped by Newcastle. They couldn't beat 10-man Southampton. They were well beaten, I thought, at West Ham. I know they came back and made it a game of it late on. I'm not sure if the magic's sort of gone out of them a little bit. So I'm going for Chelsea.
I totally agree with you. And I think...
If you're a neutral, listen, any neutral would say Chelsea. Yeah. Chelsea are in better form. Yeah. They've got the better players. I understand that. I'm just being biased.
It's a good bet. No, it's a good bet what you've got, to be fair.
Probably more value in betting on Chelsea.
Well, I don't know. Tuchel's Chelsea just don't concede goals, as simple as that.
That's why I say it'll be a tight game.
I agree with you. I think there might only be 1 goal in this, but I've got to say
we'll
Chelsea.
See. I'm going to ring you up if Leicester win.
We'll see.
You can do the same to me, don't you?
I'll definitely do the same to you. OK, game preview 4. It is a Saturday evening game. Now we're together on this one. Brighton against West Ham. What on earth happened against Everton?
I don't know. There was almost a bit like rabbits in the headlights. They never seemed to get going. We spoke about the crowd earlier, didn't we? Maybe the crowd, a full house and everything, it might have inspired West Ham a little bit more. Listen, make no mistake, my other old club, Everton, are very, very good away from home. If they could match their home form with their away form, they would be in the Champions League positions because they've got some good players, Everton. Well organised, just defended, almost said to West Ham, crossed the ball, you got 3 big centre-halves going to head it out, which is exactly what happened. And on the break, you got Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison who tore West Ham apart. And now, very frustrating. you've got to remember, you've got to put in perspective, Scott. It's all right moaning about West Ham have lost 3 of their last 4, which they have, and we all understand that. But this time last year, if you'd have had me in here, I'd have been moaning, West Ham, might be getting relegated, all doom and gloom. This season has been the complete opposite. David Moyes deserves great credit. The players deserve great credit. To even put in the same sentence West Ham and Champions League. That's never happened in the whole of the Premier League. And we're talking nearly 30 years now.
I was part of West Ham that finished 5th, but
you was never ever getting anywhere near the Champions League, Scott, was you? You had a minus goal difference as well. Don't forget. So.
How does he know that? Well, listen, you were part of the team that had the greatest ever.
Yeah, we finished 3rd back in '86, and we had and the difference everyone keeps comparing this season with the '86 season. The difference was we was actually going to win the league.
Yeah.
Right up until the last Saturday of the season, we could actually had a chance of winning the league. So it was a little bit different. And of course, the Heysel ban was in, so we didn't even get in the UEFA Cup when we finished 3rd. But listen, if West Ham can finish 5th or 6th, Europa League position, and everyone will say what a great season it's been. And they've got the fixtures there. If you've got Brighton, West Brom and Southampton, you could not ask for 3 better games there. You've got Brighton and Southampton are safe now. West Brom are relegated. You could not ask for 3 better games to get 9 points to get you into the Europa League, or even 7 points would probably do it.
How do West Ham make sure that this is not a one-off season? And what do you say to those who, we know how passionate the West Ham fans are, and they'll let you know if you're not playing well. What do you say to those who say, well, actually, let's judge them on next season when fans are in?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. And even going back to the '86 season, in '85 we nearly got relegated, '87 we nearly got relegated. So either side of what was the club's best ever season, it was not good seasons. The biggest problem for West Ham, Scott, and you'll know this as an ex-player, is consistency. West Ham on their day, they can beat anyone, Man City included. On their day, they can beat anyone, but they're not consistent. And this year, they've actually
have they shown
a run
that?
of form. They've been consistent. They've been resilient. All the words you don't normally put together with West Ham. So the challenge is there for next season, and I just hope that the board give David Moyes the money and the licence to go and get the players. I mean, there's already talk that they can't afford Jesse Lingard, and you're thinking, please, just push the boat out, sign him. He doesn't want to go back to Man United. I think he's happy, and when it opens up in London, he'll be even happier when he can go out and have a few nights out. Yeah, exactly. But, they need to sign the right players and give the manager the licence to do what he wants. But you've got to judge them next season, I agree. And it's a big season for the club, especially if they're in Europe.
I suppose keeping Declan Rice as well, because...
Keeping Deck, how do you keep Deck, Mark? There's only 2 ways you keep Deck. Win a cup, European football. It ain't about the money anymore. It's about winning a cup, European football. And if West Ham get European football, albeit Europa League, it will entice him to stay. But listen, Chelsea would want him, Man City would want him, Man United would want him, maybe even Liverpool. All the top clubs in England would all want Declan Rice, and probably clubs abroad. But how do you keep a player who's that good? He's probably going to play a starring role for England in the Euros. There's only the 2 ways. If West Ham get Europa League, at least entice him a little bit.
Someone told me 2 seasons ago, who we both know, that Real Madrid were knocking as well. We'll see whether that's the case or not. You're right in what you're saying about teams that have already stayed up or gone down, but we like Brighton, don't we? And actually, this could be a tough game if West Ham try to chase it, because Brighton can pass around you.
They can make good teams look silly at times. I mean, even like Chelsea away a couple of weeks ago when it finished 0-0, it's one of the few times Chelsea have looked a bit ragged, really, and Brighton were moving them around. They couldn't score, and that's been the issue all season long. The absence of Dunk at the back, who I think is a really good centre-half, and also Mopai, probably not as big an out up front because he hasn't scored enough goals from, I think, the chances that have been created. But that does weaken Brighton. But I think it would be wrong to underestimate them. You're never quite sure when a team's safe whether it relaxes them and frees them up, or whether they're thinking, hold on, it's been a hard season. We'll sort of stroll towards the end. I still think it's a difficult game for West Ham. When we spoke last week about it, and the kind of easy fixtures, I never felt like they would win them all. I always felt there was a couple of slip-ups there, and this might be another one.
OK, Betfred selection here.
What do you expect me to say?
I'm the same as you, but I've got to ask.
I think Brighton will be on the beach now, literally, and I think it'll be a West Ham win. I don't know what the score. I'm not going to predict the score, but I think it'll be a West Ham win. And my main man, Mikel Antonio, I think he was a little bit quiet the other night, but he's generally been in good form. And if West Ham normally score, it's normally Antonio. So West Ham to win, Antonio to score.
He's been absolutely superb. I'm going West Ham to 0.
I'm going for Brighton draw, no bet. So you get your money back if it's a draw, but I think Brighton are still an awkward team to play against.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you on that one. OK, game preview 5. It is Spurs against Wolves. Spurs beat Sheffield United 4-0. They lost to Leeds 3-1. Where are they right now?
They're more near that Leeds 3-1 than they... I mean, Sheffield United are... I mean, if they were in the Championship now, where would they be? I mean, they're, you know, wouldn't be top 6, I wouldn't have thought. I mean, they're completely dispirited. They were beaten by Crystal Palace, who have lost a lot of other games, you know, so you can't read anything into that 4-0. I mean, Scott, you said last week you fancied Leeds to beat Spurs. It sounds easy to say now, but I didn't disagree because Tottenham are just a team of individuals, really, and I think if you play as a team, football now seems to be more about the team than the individual, and like Pep Guardiola will be the absolute epitome of that. But you see it all around you. Somebody like Leeds, absolute team. How many of them would get in the Tottenham team? Not many, player for player, but they're a team, and Spurs are not. And it looks like they're just playing out the season now. It was a really dispiriting performance from them.
Can you see what Ryan Mason is trying to do, and how hard is it for him to come in and change? As you're talking about, it's a culture here going.
Yeah, I think what he's trying to do is to just get as many attackers on the pitch as he can and hope that they do the business for him. And it's not a bad tactic, I think, at this stage of the season. There's nothing he can do tactically with them in these last couple of games that's going to change things. So, no, I think he's right to try to get a few of the attackers on the pitch. And Dele Alli showed some nice touches against Leeds, I felt, and getting him back on board for the new manager could be one of his most important roles, because you've seen with Jesse Lingard, you know, the talent's there. For whatever reason it wasn't being shown. I think the mistake is Gareth Bale. I know he's a tremendous player, but it happened against Arsenal, where Arsenal just terrorised Tottenham down that right-hand side because Bale wouldn't track back. Leeds just did exactly the same thing. All the threat came down that side. He was a wonderful player. He's still great going forward, but you need to have like a Kante in midfield to sort of spot the gaps, and Tottenham haven't got that.
What do you make of Spurs? They do seem to be a team of individuals, and it's difficult for Ryan Mason to come in. He wants to sort of bring in the likes of Gareth Bale, there's Dele Alli, Son, Kane. I mean, individually they're fantastic, aren't they? But they're a million miles away from where they need to be.
I would say they're in crisis at the moment. It's a crisis that can be solved by appointing the new manager, because that is the key to it. You know, the most important person at any football club is the manager.
What type, even if you don't say who, what type of manager do they need?
Well, they need one who's going to keep Harry Kane to start with. And
it's a big name, really.
It's got to be a big name and someone who's got the ambitions for the club. Listen, Tottenham is I know I'm a West Ham fan, but Tottenham is a fantastic football club. Brilliant training ground, fantastic, unbelievable ground they've got now. Everything is in place. I think, for me, again, looking in as an outsider, I think the legacy of that team, the 2016 team that should have won the league, they should have finished in front of Leicester that year. And I think it's sort of, they've played it out, 17, 18, 19, got to the Champions League final. I think that team's got to be broken up. And I think someone's got to come in, hard-hitting, knows what he's doing, and just get on with it and make decisions. Now, for me, you've got to try and keep Harry Kane. That's the first thing. But if you're not going to keep Harry and you're going to get the money in, you've then got to buy the right players. I mean, look, for me, the goalkeeper needs changing. The back four's all over the place. There's incredible talent going forward, but you know, as we said about Man City earlier, if you haven't solved that back four, then or Chelsea as well, you're conceding goals, you're in trouble. So it's a big job. That's why I say they're in crisis, not because of the infrastructure, but they need a manager. Listen, I feel for Ryan a little bit. You know, he's a young lad. He's a really nice kid as well, and I spoke to him a few times. He's got Tottenham at heart and everything, but that must be an incredible job trying to manage those players. A few of them ain't bothered. You know, a few of them are going to be leaving. A few of them are on the beach and frustrated. It is a club in crisis at the moment, but it can be solved by the manager.
Just one more then on Spurs, and Harry Kane in particular. Yeah. If you were Harry Kane or were his agent, you might not be here right now, you'd be on a beach in Barbados, but if you were, what would you do?
It's a really hard question for me to answer, Scott, and the reason being is that my team, obviously West Ham, and I left West Ham and I signed for Everton and I played at Leicester and I had a great career. But if you said to me now, what's your one regret? My one regret is that I didn't stay at West Ham my whole career. I'd love to have stayed there, won a trophy, played in Europe, the things that I've been talking about. But I then wouldn't have played for Everton and Leicester. So it's a difficult one. And I'm only saying that because with Harry's probably thinking, I want to stay at Spurs, my loyalty's to Spurs, I want to be the record goal scorer in the Premier League, which he will be, provided he stays in the Premier League. But I want to win trophies. I want to play in the Champions League. And that was two of the reasons I wanted to win a trophy. I know I didn't do it, but you win trophies, play in Europe. And he'll be thinking to himself, if I go to a Manchester United or a Man City or a Chelsea, or whoever it might be, or if I go to Real Madrid or Barcelona, I'm going to be playing in Champions League. I'm going to be winning trophies. And I feel for him. I really feel for him. It's going to be an incredibly hard decision. I'm not sure which way it's going to go. But it's not as easy as saying I need to leave and go and win trophies and that, because his heart will be at Spurs. So it's going to be very interesting to watch what develops.
Plus, he's got 3 years left in his contract, so
it doesn't mean anything,
well,
does it really?
It means that Daniel Levy.
There.
It means that Daniel Levy
can drive a hard bargain, obviously, you know. But,
and he will. And in these times at the moment,
of all the players in the world, there's probably we all three of us would agree with. There's probably about 5 players in the world that you would pay sort of 150 million for. Harry Kane's one of them.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I'm not quite sure the clubs are willing or have the money to do that. We'll see. Listen, let's quickly touch on Wolves. Nuno's playing the kids. It's not necessarily about this season. Therefore, how important is this game for Wolves?
Yeah, it's probably not overly important, but I think Nuno has shown in his time in England and before that, he's somebody that's really driven. And so I don't think he would allow Wolves to just be completely off their game. I think they've been off it this season, not because they've not been trying, just because they've had injuries. Jimenez up front was a just irreplaceable loss for them, really, particularly when it's happened when the wind, you couldn't bring anyone in to replace him properly. They've had a couple of issues elsewhere. Bolly's not been, I don't think, the same player this year. He's doesn't seem to have got fully fit. On the left, when they play with the wing backs, like they haven't had a left wing back, and I know you said we've joked before it's the most important position on the pitch, but it
also takes years off your career.
It's one of them positions where if you haven't got anybody to play it, becomes what do you do then? So they tried moving to a back four. I don't think Patricio, the goalkeeper's covered himself in massive glory. Either they've just had a bit of a bad year. I would expect them to not necessarily be top 6 next year, but I think they'll be better than what they are.
OK, Betfred selection for this one.
OK, right, Mark, I didn't know you was going to be here as a Tottenham boy. I did do this prediction. I'm not going to say this to wind you up, OK? I said Spurs in crisis. I've got Wolves half-time, Wolves full-time.
Have you? That'd be a good bet.
I've gone for Wolves to win.
Oh. Have you?
Spurs, take out that Sheffield United result, which doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Outplayed by Man City, outplayed by Leeds. Yeah. Southampton, I thought they were pretty lucky to get the win in that game. So Wolves are about 6-1. I think a very fair bet.
It's a very good bet, and I looked at that as well. I just think that Spurs are one of those where, Wolves are not in a good place. I think Nuno is playing or looking towards next season to see what people he can keep and who's going to develop in the first team. Spurs are in a bad place right now, but I think they can beat teams who are playing poorly, and I don't see Wolves playing particularly well at the moment. So I'm going half-time draw, full-time Spurs. Can't believe I'm the only one going for Spurs here. OK, look, let's go to our best fantasy football picks this weekend. Each of us picks a player that we think will star this weekend. Who have you gone for?
Well, I've gone for the man to make up for what he did the other day with his penalty, and I've gone for Sergio Aguero. Listen, obviously with the City scenario, it's changed, even changed since I told you what I was going to bet on, because City are now the title winners. They might play a completely different team. But if he plays, for me, Sergio Aguero will score, because he'll have a point to prove. He'll have taken on board all the criticism, and he'll want to put it right. And that's what you do as a centre forward. You can't worry about the last game. All right, you missed the penalty, which was poor. If you got hat-trick the last game, it doesn't matter. It's always football. The great thing about football, it's always the next game. And I think he'll play. If he plays, I think he'll score maybe 1 or 2 goals against a Newcastle team that aren't really bothered.
Yeah. Just quickly, as a striker, if you feel like you've either had a poor game or you missed some opportunities, how much does that gnaw at you, and then you take that into the next game to spur you on?
If you're a goal scorer, you could debate about the rest of my game, Scott, but as a goal scorer, I took pride. That was my job. Your job, you're paid good money to score goals. And if you mess up, which he did, you have to put it right. And the top players, the top goal scorers do that. If you look through the years, the Shearers, the Michael Owens, the Robbie Fowlers, and before that, the Jimmy Greaves, Ian Rush, Gary Linekers, Clive Allens, you name all the goal scorers. You play poorly one week and then you put it right the next week. And that's why I've gone for Aguero. I think if he's playing, it's a good bet for him to be the top man.
Very good bet, and I do think he will start as well.
I've gone for a game we haven't mentioned, but Leeds really impressed me last week against Spurs. Not stopping at all. You know, people wondered whether like the Bielsa effect would drain them energy-wise, but got to remember the Premier League's quite a bit shorter than the Championship, so feel like a holiday for them only playing 38 matches at that pace. I think Jack Harrison, somebody that's really caught the eye. Again, not taken a while for him to really develop, and he's had a few loan spells. He's found his place. I think he's a goal threat, but also the assists he gets from that left-hand side. They've got Burnley, who I think it's a very winnable game, and you actually look at what they've got coming up the rest of the season. I think Leeds might finish the season really well.
Yeah,
top 10 as well, which would be a fantastic achievement.
Yeah, which I thought watching them last season they could do as well. Stuart Dallas is also someone who's been superb.
Bamford as well. Patrick Bamford's been very good.
Wonderful season. I've gone for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I thought he, very good finish against West Ham last week. Everton aren't the same side without him, and I just think Sheffield United are there for the taking at the moment. So Calvert-Lewin for me. OK, let's finish up with a team treble, 12-1. It is this weekend. One team that we think will win. And why? Who have you gone for?
Again, with no bias. I've gone for my beloved Hammers because they need to win. They've got to get results. There's a lot of teams now in the Premier League. There's probably about 10, 11 teams maybe that don't need results. West Ham need results. So I think they will go there. I agree with what you say about Brighton being a hard team to beat, difficult team, etc. But I think West Ham will win at Brighton, and I don't know what odds they are, but I think they've got a great chance of winning at Brighton. Their away form's actually been really good. Played really well at Burnley last away game, and I think West Ham will beat Brighton.
OK.
I've gone for the biggest game of the weekend. I've gone for the FA Cup final. I think that I'm always a bit nervous in cup finals because I think that you can sometimes get the underdog raise their game, and it means a lot to Leicester, and I know that for absolute fact. But I just think Chelsea are quite a bit better than them. I know the Premier League table doesn't say that, but if the two teams, the kind of where they're heading at the moment feels different.
Yeah.
I'm going for Chelsea to beat Leicester.
Since Tuchel came in, if he did the table, I'm sure Chelsea would be higher up. And for me, they probably just got to Manchester City as one of the best teams, if not the best team, or best two teams in Europe. So hope you're right there. 12-1. And that's it, mate.
Enjoyed it, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, good.
Great fun.
What are you up to this weekend?
Have me back. This weekend, I'm working for Leicester for the FA Cup final.
Are you?
They tried to get me at Wembley, but because of all the restrictions, so I'll be zooming from home. I'll have me blue and white scarf on, but it won't be a Chelsea one. No, it won't be a Chelsea one.
TC, brilliant to see you.
Thanks,
good
Scott.
to see you Saturday, and good to see you today as well, Mark, as ever. Thank you. OK, that's it. We'll be back next week looking to see who's won the FA Cup final. That should be interesting, that one. Plenty more to talk about, as always. And remember, on behalf of Betfred and the Racing Post, if you are to gamble, please gamble responsibly. See you next week.